obvious
There's
sense.
a huge edge to be gained by looking into things like this.
With the hype, it's only going one way. He's still too cheap.
How can you not love fantasy football?
Welcome to the Fantasy Sanctuary. We are back. The strategy series continues. Those of you watching, you can see we are talking about trading, and I am joined by the one person you think of when you think of trading in fantasy. Of course, is the phenomenal Russ Fisher. He is host of the Trade Addicts pod. He is one of the brilliant minds behind everything that is happening with Fantasy Cares right now. Russ, how are you doing?
I am good. I am ready to talk trades. I feel like I haven't just done that in a while. So I'm here. I am ready to talk way too much. And I'm man. I was just sitting there like listening, like jamming with that intro, and then just your last thing of like, how do you not love fantasy football? Like, how do you not love fantasy football? Like, yes.
Exactly that. Exactly. And let's be honest, the most enjoyable thing about fantasy football is trading. Ignore what Tom says when he's talking about drafting. No, give me a good trade negotiation over anything to do with the draft. So
Yeah, but why is the draft so good? Because you trade a lot during the draft.
exactly that. Exactly that. So the idea of the show is what we're going to talk through is the strategy behind trading. We're hoping to give you the tools to make you a better dynasty player so that you can hopefully win more of your leagues. So Russ, as I said, he is the man. He's the trade addict himself. So let's start at the very beginning, Russ. Preparation for a trade. What are you doing in order to kind of go out and make a trade? What do you do before you don't just go out and make a trade? How do you get that preparation piece sorted?
You don't just go out and make a trade. Is that? See, it's really funny because I remember when I first started all of this stuff, and it was just like, oh, you trade. This is what you do, and I'm like, there's well, okay, so there's like 10,000 different ways to trade, 10,000 different kinds of trades. Like you always want things to be so simplistic. How do you do this? Oh, you just do this, and it's even when it comes to dynasty fantasy football trading, it's never that easy. Um, there's board trading, in which case I do zero preparation. I will just start clicking through. I use MFL. I only use my fantasy league. There's a trade button, and then you pick which team you want to trade with. I'll pick a league that I haven't done anything in a while, click that trade button, and then team by team, just go through. Oh, I like that guy. All right, click, click. Okay, next, click, click. And I'll send like 7 to 10 out of the 12 teams a trade. Well, 11, I guess, because I can't send it to myself, and just move on to the next. And so when you're just doing that, there's no preparation whatsoever. When you're doing that, I recommend paying more attention than I normally do. Because trading while bored is very, very dangerous because you can just zone out clicking buttons, which I've made plenty of bad trades while doing that, but it's also part of the fun. I don't recommend doing that if you're okay. Let me take a step further back. My leagues are very low stakes. My leagues, the Trade Addicts leagues, there's 11 of them. I run more than half of the leagues I'm in, and they're all low stakes. My most expensive leagues are the Trade Addicts leagues, which are $42 per season, and that's because we donate money to charity. Otherwise, it would be lower. Plus, I just like the number 42 because I'm a big fan of the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. So the reason they are that low is because it makes you more willing to do silly things like trading for no reason or making trades you wouldn't normally do because there's not as much on the line. Of course, I'm not belittling it. $42 is a lot of money for you. I don't mean it to sound like that, but compared to what you see around with people like, hey, got this league going, it's $150 buy-in. Like, what? Why would you do that? That's ridiculous. So I try and keep mine like on the lower side because you're more likely to do fun trades and stuff you wouldn't normally do. But other than that, like if you are making trades to make your team better, which is usually the goal, which is usually what you're trying to do.
What we're aiming for, yeah.
So I guess what the preparation would be is the first thing I like to do is, again, I could only speak with MFL. Like I go and I click my team and I click the trade bait button because the trade bait button, first of all, I firmly believe in using the trade bait. And the way I use it is these are the players I'm cool with moving right now. These are the players that if you were to say, hey, Russ, what are you looking to do with your team? It would be like, I would do something involving these players for something. And it doesn't mean they're cheaper than normal. It doesn't mean I'm looking to get rid of them. It doesn't mean anything. It literally just means these are the guys I'm more than willing to move, because the real answer is you should always be willing to move anyone for the right price.
Yeah.
Now, even more importantly, this game is for fun and it's a game. So if you want Josh Allen on your team, you don't trade him regardless of what they're offering you. That's completely fine. I don't mean to come off like that, but on my teams, literally every single player is up for trade depending on the price. Like, of course, it's going to be
except T. Higgins.
No, he's available. Just no one will most likely be able to pay that price. But if someone says, "Hey, I'll give you Patrick Mahomes for T. Higgins," bye T. Like that's the way it is, and that's absolutely fine. So I click that trade bait button first of all to update my trade bait, to look to see what players I feel more okay with moving, and also because it shows you the draft picks you have on your team, and that's also very important to gauge where you are amongst the league, how you think if you're competing, rebuilding, all of that stuff. So you look at what you have, you update your trade bait. Sometimes you wait half an hour, see if something rolls in. Every once in a while, you get a trade offer when you update your trade bait. But after that, I'll go, instead of just going to the trade button, I'll go to the rosters button and scroll through and look at everyone else's roster. All right, well, I had these 2 wide receiver 2s. Let's see if I can trade these 2, like Jerry Jeudy and Deontay Johnson type guys, for like a DK Metcalf-ish guy. Like, see what I have. I have a lot of okay guys. Let me see if I can bolster 2 of them up to a better guy. Oh, I have a lot of studs on this team, but I have like 4 or 5 starters. Maybe I need to break it down a little bit. So you gain a very good idea studying what your roster looks like. And then you do the important thing of looking at the other team's roster, seeing what they have, and trying to gauge what they might be doing. I know there are many, many people that don't like actually talking when it comes to trades. Like I record Dynasty Wall Street with John Bauer and Kane Fassell, which is so much fun because they are 2 people that firmly believe, send an offer, I will either accept, decline straight, or I will counter. And that's all I need to say. I don't need to tell you why I'm declining. If I'm declining, I don't want it. If I'm countering it, I'm telling you what I would rather do. And no, I'm not going to go back and do that original trade when you're throwing a third. That's not how, like, that's boring. Why?
I firmly disagree with that premise. I think it works, and don't get me wrong, there's absolutely times when I'll make trades without ever exchanging words, and we'll go back 3 or 4 different negotiations, but there won't be any words spoken. But I do think there is absolutely a world in which having an open dialogue gets to the end point quicker. And if somebody's sending me a trade that's a long way off, it's rather than just rejecting it. And it's easier sometimes just to send a little message back, like, this is miles off. I would need this on top, or something like that.
Exactly.
And it saves you the next half hour of just receiving 5 gradually increasing trades until you get to that point where it's at least passable. So yeah, I think there's absolutely a world where just counter, reject, whatever. But sometimes just a little bit of more meat on the bone, a little bit of nuance can save everyone an awful lot of time, quite frankly.
Well, I mean, it's also A, helpful, and B, like, that's part of the fun of it. Like, I'll give you a very specific instance. Yesterday, a trade went down in one of my leagues where I went to a concert last night, and I don't know if you know the band Cake, but they are fantastic and wonderful live.
I'm if you're talking music, I'm probably like the 1% in terms of knowledge. Music just doesn't register on my radar at all. So I'm afraid it's lost on me.
I don't judge. You like what you like, you don't like what you don't like. But so I was at a concert, and the concert ends, get back to the car, and I look at my phone and I see 2 emails. One is a trade offer, one is trade completed from someone else. So first things first, I'm like, all right, well, someone else got a trade done. Let me see what that was. And someone traded Cooper Kupp and Jamison Williams for that team's first.
Wow.
Okay, cool. What was the trade? Now, in my head, after that trade was done, someone sent me a trade. Oh no, that same person offered me Jamison Williams and Cooper Kupp for Garrett Wilson.
Slightly different valuation.
Right. So it turns out the team that traded away their first for Jamison Williams and Cooper Kupp, complete rebuild. So on the outside, this team looks terrible, and then sold their first for 2 players, one of which will start, one of which you hope will after a 6-game suspension. But then the team had like 7 other firsts and no real other starters. And I'm just like, okay. Like, you started laughing. I'm like, all right, there's a little bit of a difference in value here. But also, I am not going to stand for this bad form happening in one of my leagues. You're not supposed to treat a 24 pick as anything but mid, because that person has so much time between now and the 2024 draft to change where they are.
Yeah.
Now, Cooper Kupp and Jamison Williams, for 1 pick, it has to be early. Now, I get Cooper Kupp is like 47, and I get Jamison Williams hasn't really shown us anything yet, but still, he was an early first-round pick, and nothing should have happened to lower his value. So we're still talking about a pretty solid first round. Yeah, I'm not going to sit and watch that happen. I'm going to go make this guy's team better, get some more draft picks coming back to me, and ruin that guy's trade. Because
exactly that, yeah.
Because it's fun, like, for no other reason. Of course, he knows I'm not doing this as a personal attack. But in the group chat, I'm like, all right, well, I'm about to make your team better, because the fact that he was willing to settle and take the risk on a first with you, but wanted Garrett frickin' Wilson from me, not going to happen. Let's go. So,
but also
I'm
you
talking back and forth with this guy for like an hour and a half, and then of course we both fell asleep. I'm old, and I was at a concert till like 11 o'clock. What the hell am I, like? I was half asleep while I was talking to the guy. 11 o'clock, I should be sleeping for an hour already. But like, yeah, we've been talking for a while this morning. I have 4 offers sitting out to him. Of course, he's talking to other teams because he sold his first. There's no reason to lose now. So he's going to push everything into competing. Now, I'm hoping I get to him first. But the reason talking really matters is I have Chris Olave on my team, and he really wants Chris Olave. And he sent me 2 firsts for Chris Olave. I just reject, like, right away. Snap reject. Like, I saw the email, I hit reject. It must have been 3 minutes at most after he hit the send button. 2 firsts and a second. Reject. 2 firsts and Cooper Kupp. And then finally I reply, like, this is why, like you said before, why sit here and wait for all of these things? So I go back to them like, look, my team is bad. I'm not going to win. So I'm not taking Cooper Kupp. There's no point. Chris Olave is at least a 3 first player for me right now. And at least one of them needs to be very early. So you offering me 2 late firsts and a guy I don't need isn't really going to help. And if it was someone I could move, like, you can move Cooper Kupp pretty easily. You're not going to get the value that guy just got. So it's not worth the risk for me. So he's like, all right, well, so we started talking about, like, okay, he's not going to get Olave right now, but like maybe DK Metcalf. We'll work a different deal out. He needs a quarterback. I have some young running backs. Like, so we went from me just being annoyed at how many times he's making me hit reject to understanding where we're both coming from. And now we have 4 trades sitting out there that he may accept. Well, he can't accept all of them because there's overlapping players, but like, he can accept 2 of them.
Yeah.
And both of our teams are pushed in the directions we want to be, because we sat and we talked about who we want, how we want them, and where we want to go in the end. Otherwise, we wouldn't have gotten anywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that brings us really nicely onto our next piece of negotiation. I think my biggest frustration in Dynasty, in basically in any fantasy, is the people that are saying, I need to massively clearly win this trade. I need to destroy the other team. Yeah, that's great. But at the end of the day, a trade needs to be win-win for both teams for the good of the league. And I think that through clear, open communication, you can get to that point much easier than just sending random trades back and forth until you kind of you might, you know, the biggest frustration I get is someone who will spam the league chat and say, right, I've sent out an offer to 11 people and try and like get that FOMO going. And all it is that they've sent an absolutely outrageous trade on the hopes that they just get one person to click accept. It drives me mad.
So much to unpack in everything you just said. But right there, it's really, really funny. Actually, all of these things pertain to one league again also. Sending out bad offers. It's really, like, first of all, I do it plenty. Usually when I do it, it's because I'm not paying enough attention. Like, we laugh about it constantly on my show, the amount of bad offers I send to Rocky. And usually what happens is he'll reject them. I go to reject the to check the email for the rejection because I don't remember what I sent out. And he'll be like, oh, why did I think that was a good idea? And I'll message him like, oh, my bad. I don't know what I was thinking. He's like, yeah, I figured. You know, like, again, people know me well enough to know that I don't pay attention and I just click buttons. You know, so like the problem is bad offers still get accepted every once in a while. We have one league, new owner just came in, so new manager just came in, and one or two offers and they were not great, but the new manager had a direction he wanted. He has players he likes. First of all, there's nothing wrong with taking advantage of people and knowing what players they like. I have overpaid for T. Higgins and Calvin Ridley so many times in my Dynasty career, and I'm fine with it. You know, so if you know that about someone in your league, go for it. If they're smart, they don't do it, or they're me and they do it every time. I mean, you know, there's the two sides of that. But you know, the problem with saying you shouldn't send bad offers is sometimes they get approved or accepted, sorry. And then you can't blame them. You can't say, why do you send these crappy offers? Oh, because 1 out of 30 times it gets accepted. And that's good enough. Like, that is a good enough reason to send bad offers.
And it's infuriating. It's infuriating on the receiving end, certainly. So when it comes to negotiation, Russ, we're talking here, this is a, you know, open dialogue, some backwards and forwards. Is there any, I guess, do's and don'ts that you have that to try and get that end goal you want to achieve so that you're not necessarily perhaps overpaying for a player that you're looking to go and acquire?
All right, but real quick before we get to that, because it was also something you said before, and you said, you know, to this second point, are you trying to clearly win every trade? Because there's people that need to diabolically destroy every other manager whenever they trade. And you said it should be win-win for the good of the league. In my 7-8 years of Dynasty, 20-ish years of fantasy football in general, have never seen a trade ruin a league. Redraft, it's easier because it's redraft in 1 year and you're done. But I have seen some really, really, really bad Dynasty trades that have left people wanting to quit the league because of trades other people did. And then 5 months later, it was a victory for the other side. You know, like, it's no trade ruins a league. And I need to drive that point home because, first of all, again, everything is different depending on the leagues you play. If you pay $150 per year for your league, I get getting upset because it's not going to destroy the league, but that other person, not you, just got better, you know, right? Like, that's a lot of money to have to lose. But like, no one trade destroys a league. No two trades destroys a league. And you don't know better than everyone else does. Trade calculators don't know better than everyone else does. The world is unpredictable. Let's take that step back. And so you don't know what's going to work out in a couple of months. So if you see bad trades, don't freak out. Don't try and get it reversed. Reversing trades, vetoes are never #never veto.
They're the answer.
Yeah, so I just wanted to put that out there because I know a lot of people have that guttural, visceral reaction to bad trades. Maybe you should have offered the bad trade first. That's again back to what I'm saying. But then moving forward, so do's and don'ts when it comes to negotiations. You know, there's always the very strong do as I say, not as I do. And I think this might be one of them because I'm not smooth whatsoever. I'm not tricky. I'm not sly. I'm not any of those words. I'm super honest. literally always when it comes. Like, I will never lie about how I feel about a player, about how I value a player, which player I'm like. There are so many smart people that are just like, oh, you want this, lower end running back? Offer something for a high end wide receiver and start working on that lower end running back. So if you have to start breaking the trade down, all of a sudden you made a trade for that guy and you got the guy you wanted for a lesser price. And I'm like, oh, that's smart. That's a lot of work. I don't want to do that. Like, it works. It does. I don't see the point in it. If you play with the kind of people that will raise prices just because you say you want a player, that sucks. And I don't necessarily want to play with those people. Again, I play low stakes. I play for fun. Before you join a Trade Addicts league, I ask because they're all random. So I always say, like, look, the point of these leagues is for fun. You're supposed to be here to do stuff you want to do that you don't normally do in other leagues. If your answer to this, well, winning is fun, then maybe this league isn't for you, because you're like, that's the whole point. You're supposed to be here for fun. You're supposed to learn your process, right? Like, the best story of this is J Mike and the J Mike Invitational, where he in the 2021 draft had, I think it was 18 of the top 22 picks in the rookie draft. Like, so he had the entire first round in a couple of seconds.
Wow.
And it's because, again, he had a very low pressure league where he's like, I want to try and do this. And then he took it to his other leagues. Thankfully, he did not pull that off in another league that I'm in. But like, that's the whole point of this, is like, to say I know everything and I know everything that to do about trading. I don't. Like, I still learn as I go. I still make plenty of mistakes and all that stuff. But to me, it's just so much easier just to be honest, just to be like, and I'm a little too straightforward where I will literally just be like, hey, Rich, give me this guy. Just give me DeAndre Swift. I want DeAndre Swift. Give me DeAndre Swift. Well, trade me for him. Just give him to me. I'll give you this. That's not enough. I don't care. Just give it to me. Like, and of course we will negotiate, but people are just like, oh, don't let people know what you want, because then they're.
I think for me, like, I'm exactly the same as you. I classify myself as an honest trader. I mean, I've got trade values which are out on the internet. If you want to trade with me, you can go and find my ranks, my values, whatever you want. And I quite often have people say, if I reject a trade, and they'll go, oh, but you've got this as an accept in your trade calculator. What should you do? And yeah, in those situations, I kind of go back, look at it, and sometimes I've then re-accepted a trade and gone, actually, I probably should accept that. For me, I think that if it comes back to that communication piece, if somebody approaches me and says, I'm interested in this player, what's your price? I will always quote my exact price from my trade values back at them and say, this is exactly where I value him. And I'll sell for a little bit more than that. Like, that's basically how I will always negotiate and trades. And yeah, I think there's some fantastic things where, you can, as you said, go after this high ticket item when actually what you want is the low ticket item, and get it almost seen as a throw in. And those sort of negotiations are fantastic. But I think my 101 of negotiating is be honest, be to the point. I think that the key to me when I'm negotiating a trade is not necessarily just to negotiate that trade. It's to open the communication for the next 3, 4, 5 trades down the line. The worst thing I could think in a dynasty league is if I might get a great deal now, but if it annoys the other person so much or alienates a league member, or the negotiation period, they think I'm just trying to fleece them, and that costs me a trade partner down the line. Well, come playoff time, one of my star running backs gets injured, I need to go and find somebody. Oh, these two teams are rebuilding and wanting to sell all their running backs. Oh, but I've pissed both of them off 3 months earlier.
Yeah,
shock. They're probably not going to want to trade with me, and then I'm up the creek without a paddle, aren't I? And I think that's it. Is that my biggest thing about negotiation is, you want, in a 12-team league, you want to be able to say, I can trade with 11 teams in that league. You don't ever want to look at your league standings and go, oh, well, I can't trade with them because I annoyed them last time and I fleeced them on this deal. And they asked me, they asked me about a player, I couldn't price, they paid it, and then I was like, no, I'm still not interested. Just don't annoy people.
Yeah.
I think is probably the biggest tip for negotiation is don't anger people, don't annoy people, keep those lines of communication open.
In the bylaws, the last two lines of the bylaws of all the Trade Addicts leagues, the first one is the good old commish has the right to do what needs to be done for the good of the league and all of that stuff. But there's also, we run on a very strong don't be a dick policy.
Yeah.
And that goes in with that. But also I something popped in my head when you were talking, and I wish I could take credit for it because someone did this to me and I'm like, oh, I'm going to steal that. I like that. I sent an offer and I think it was like, it may have been a 1-for-1, like running back for wide receiver or something like that. And they go to me like, fair value, not what I'm looking to do. Are you looking to sell this player or buy this player? And I'm like, oh, okay.
Wow.
That's a really good question because it's like, it's packages everything, like what direction you're looking to do. Do you actually have interest in the player you're asking for? Are you just trying to get rid of the player you want? Because if what good is it if you send me, Najee Harris for DK Metcalf, I hit reject and we're nowhere better. And then I counter and I say, all right, well, what about DK Metcalf for this player? And then you go, oh, I didn't actually really care that it was specifically Metcalf. I just wanted to get rid of Najee Harris. I'm like, oh, well, never mind. I wasted both of our time right there. So like asking that question is like such a great gateway to the negotiations that worked out because the person gave you an insight to their values, especially 1-for-1. It works out so easily. Where it's just like, this equals this. All right, so I see that now. But now what's your goal? Where are you going? Was just getting this guy off your roster because maybe you don't think Najee Harris is going to rebound, or that I think he will, so you wanted to move him to me and just DK lined up best? Or did you want DK and you just know I liked Najee this season, so you threw it out there? And getting the answers to that usually, if anything else, helps you build bigger trades, which are just more fun. Because it's like, well, I was trying to get rid of Najee, so what about, and then I'll be like, all right, well, what about these two guys? Okay, cool. All right, but I think that's a little off. I'm like, all right, these three for those two. Yes, and we're done. Like it helps you, again, like you said before, being honest with your valuation and the direction your team is going and what players you like and don't like. And then all of a sudden, you put something together, and otherwise you're literally just throwing shit at the wall and seeing what sticks. And well, yes, that works sometimes, not often, and it's not fun. And to me, the point of this is fun. So it's
absolutely. I'm definitely going to steal that line. I think that's fantastic. I'm definitely going to steal that.
Oh, and by the way, really on this last one, are you trying to clearly win every trade? I know. The important thing is getting where you want to go. I firmly believe in going to get your guy. Again, like I said before, this is a game. It's fun. If I want T. Higgins on my team, I know I'm going to have to overpay for him because people know my love for him. I don't hide it very well. I could have put this poster over there where no one can see it, but I didn't, So no, winning every trade isn't, and clearly winning isn't really necessary whatsoever, because like you said before, and that's the real important part. Both teams should win. Both teams should get better. And again, this happened so long ago, and I wish I could remember who said this stuff, but one of the very first, when I first started Trade Addicts, there was one or two other trade shows podcast wise. And I heard this, it wasn't even on a trading podcast, where someone was just like, yeah, I'm a volume trader. And that just means, let's say I want to get my team 100% better than it is right now. Ideally, you make one trade and your team is 100% better. Chances are that's not going to happen in the real world. But I like to trade a lot. So I make a trade, I'm 1% better. I make a trade, I get another 3% better. 10, 15 trades later, which in my league is realistic, my team's 100% better. So while quote unquote winning every trade is a little bit of a false name, because everybody should win in a real trade. You don't want someone to lose. You don't want someone that's like, I won't do same position, same tier trades, because someone loses that every single time. One player does better than the other player. But when you're doing a decent sized trade, or, one position for another, everyone should walk away happy. Everyone should walk away with their team being a little better. So even if they got 10% better and I only got 3% better, I'm still happy because I'm putting my team in the direction I want it to be. And honestly, that's the only team I look at when I'm really getting trades done. I don't be like, well, if I trade them this guy, they have this and their team. Like, no, I'm making my team better to win. So I don't really care what their team looks like because I'm building my team.
Yeah, I think, you look at their team to find trade partners and find players you're going to go after and teams that it lines up for. But at the end of the day, it's about you looking after number one and you focusing on number one. I think that's the key. Whilst you're here, though, guys, if you've not yet subscribed, you are missing out. If you're here, you can also, it's got ticking along the bottom. You can become a YouTube member. You get access to the Discord. You get access to my rankings, my trade values, Tom's best ball rankings from as little as 99p or $1.25 a month. And it helps us out massively. So what we're going to do now, Russ, is we're going to dive into, I guess, a little bit more specifics of going out and doing something. So buying. This is, what we all like doing. This is the fun bit, isn't it? Is you've identified a specific player that you want to go and acquire. How are you going about buying that player? Are you just literally sending a DM, as you said, and just saying, right, I'm interested in this. What's it take?
Well, I told you, subtlety is not my strong suit. Okay, but I use MFL, so it's all internet based. It's all like, I know Sleeper is app, so it's a little different, but like I open my internet, I use Chrome. There's a little bookmark folder that says fantasy football. I click on that and it's just all my leagues in a row. Start at the top, trade Addicts 1, click. Do I have this guy? No. Okay. Who does? Hit the trade button. Look at my team. Look at theirs. Okay. That works. Cool. Send out a trade. It's very just, okay, cool. Let's go through every single league. And if I see something that makes sense for both of our teams, I probably won't reach out to them. Like, I am getting, like, I've used DeAndre Swift's name a few times. I am far too in on DeAndre Swift right now. Like, in my head, if that dude stays healthy, he could be a top 7-ish running back. I don't know if that's realistic. I don't care if it's realistic because I'm picking something ridiculous and going after it. It's worked in the past. Like, I loved when the world was thinking that the Eagles were going to replace Jalen Hurts. I traded for so many Jalen Hurts shares. It was wonderful. I loved it. And, I was a big Devonta Smith fan, went crazy after him before last season, worked out well. So I'm going to ride this Eagles train as long as I can, and the player this year is DeAndre Swift. So I did exactly what I was saying. Trade Addicts 1, don't have him. Okay, send this. Okay, cool. Trade Addicts 2, don't have him. The team that does, crap, I don't have anything that helps them, because maybe they're rebuilding. They just happen to have DeAndre Swift, and my team here is straight competing. Like, if I'm competing, chances are I have a 25 third, and that's it. And that's not going to help you get anything, So if that's the case, and I still want to try and get Swift on my team, I love doing this. I'm like, hey, I know I looked at our teams. I don't think we fit, but I want DeAndre Swift. Is there anything on my team you're interested in? And if they'll come back saying yes or no, and I love if they say no, and I'm like, all right, what do you want? What can I go get that would get me DeAndre Swift from you? Because then it's like a project, it's something like, all right, well, can I go get someone else's first so I can put a first in this low level player? Like, whatever they say, like, so that's literally what I do. I will go down all of my leagues. Does that player fit on my team, first of all? Because if I'm in a full rebuild, well, okay, I want to put this out there. If you're full rebuilding, you don't have to avoid running backs. You want any player you think is going to go up in value. It really comes down to how much you're willing to risk, and I am very risk averse. So I won't pay for someone like DeAndre Swift to put on my team, hoping he'll go up in value and be able to trade him, because I'm just too scared it won't work out. It's a brilliant idea. I did it with Derrick Henry like 2 years ago.
See, I'm the complete opposite in a rebuild. We've had this chat with Mike, and we've done the rebuilding strategy show and stuff. But for me, I think in a rebuild, I go ultra aggressive, because my thinking is that worst case scenario, I'm still rebuilding.
You're back where you started, and you're absolutely right.
Best case scenario, it's a massive boom in value, and it puts me where I'm wanting to go that little bit quicker. So
no, like I said, do
go,
as I say, not as I do. I am very risk averse, and it usually ends up being to my detriment. You know, like I said before, I've gotten lucky with buying in on players where, for some reason, it seems like the community is out on them. And then they gain in value, and either I have this wonderful player that I wanted and got cheaply, or yay, I got this wonderful player who now is more valuable than when I bought them. I can sell them now. And you really should, especially if you are just like all in on a rebuild and you don't want it to take 2 years. Like, you can do a full rebuild in an off season if you want. If you do like Rich does, like, because that's what you need to do. If you load yourself up on the Khalil Herberts and all of these RB2s, David Montgomery even got a bit of a boost going to Detroit, I guess, until they ended up drafting Gibbs. But, you know, like, there's these lower end players that you can spend a late second, early third on, and maybe eventually you sell David Montgomery in a second for a first once David Montgomery starts scoring a bunch of points. Like, you know, that's really is the smart way to do it. It's making those incremental moves, taking those risks where, like, to me, the ultimate risk right now is drafting Anthony Richardson at the 101 or 102 in a rookie draft. He really should be the 104, 105. But the ability of his value to go from an early first to multiple firsts is a very easy path. In which case, I've taken him at 102 in a lot of rebuilds. Not because I hope to start him in the long run, because I do like slow rebuilds because they're fun. I have that's another reason I love being in a lot of leagues. If I can win in 3 or 4 or 5 leagues, because I play in like 20 something leagues, if I could win 3 of them, it more than pays for the rest of my league the next year. So I'm still getting paid just to fool around in 15 leagues, you know, and eventually the real goal is to be winning in most of them, which, you know, is awesome. Like, don't get me wrong, it's happened before, and then I win a year and I'm like, all right, well, now I hate this team, I'm going to blow it up again, you know. And it's just I answered wrong. Like, it was funny, I used to do the grind every Wednesday on the DLF YouTube channel with Peter and Zach. My life got way too busy that I haven't been able to do it as often, but someone asked the question, which do you like doing better, rebuilding or winning? And I right away went like, oh, rebuilding. Oh crap, that shouldn't be the right answer.
Rebuilding's fun though. There's nothing better than tearing the team down. I took over. I honestly think it was the worst orphan I have ever seen. It was horrendous. It had no pieces of value. It had no draft picks for the next 12 months. It was appalling. And I turned it around in 2 years and came second last year. And honestly, the sense of satisfaction to take something from 0 to, okay, I didn't win, but I almost got there. And I'd say I'm probably favourite to win this year. And that's better than, I've had leagues where I've won 3 years on the trot and stuff like that. But that one rebuild from 0 to hero was, pretty special. So
don't get me wrong. Again, winning is important because it, you know, pays for the rest of your leagues. But it's making a team your own. Like, the most satisfactory thing I've ever done in fantasy football. I took over a team in a league, like you said, complete trash. And the worst part was the top 2 teams in the league have been the top teams for 4 or 5 years, and they don't trade because they don't have to. Yeah, because they did whatever they did in the startup that made their team so good, and they hit on their draft picks, luckily enough, for a year or two, to where it's just like, no, we don't trade, we don't need to. I'm like, all right, is this a game you want to play? All right. 2 years later, I went from getting the 101, drafting Saquon Barkley, to winning 2 years in a row. And then those 2 guys quit the league.
Oh, wow. I thought you were going to say they were going to come knocking for trades, but wow, no, I didn't see that.
I ended up winning that league 2 years in a row. The 2 of them left, and the league ended up folding eventually because they had to keep replacing people. I'm like, my job here is done. I don't really like, I don't know what else I'm supposed to be doing in this league. And yeah, they had a problem filling those two teams. And it's just like, all right, well, it's been fun. I appreciate it. I'm sorry I broke your league. But you're right. Like, making a team your own, from especially when it's complete trash and you build it up and you're just like, this is now how I rule this world. And it's just like, I did it myself.
It's special. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you're looking at buying a player, and I appreciate, you're in a lot of leagues, you play fantasy a long time, you know your trade values, you know what a player's worth. If we're talking about the listeners, the viewers that perhaps aren't as experienced as yourself, would you have any advice on how to find out values for a player? I've got X player, I want to go buy him. What should I be sending?
Look at the scroll on the bottom, Go Get Rich's trade values and rankings and all that stuff. I subscribe to dynastyleaguefootball.com. I subscribe to dynastytradecalculator.com. I use trade calculators. I love the DLF Trade Finder because I have built a bubble for myself. It is absolutely true. Now, Trade Addicts leagues are 99% random. Me and Rocky are in all of them. Brian Haar's in a couple because he was my co-host for a while. And like every year or so, like one person, like for Trade Addicts 10, John Bauer came up with the idea to draft, wait an entire year, and then start the league just to see what trading is in that year when we're not scoring points.
Oh, wow.
It didn't work out as well as we wanted to, but there was a couple. I loved it. I loved looking at that league every single week because having Cooper Kupp on your team, having these running backs on your team, the value doesn't help if you're not scoring points. So, like you have these players in your head where you're like, yeah, I'll be able to move. Oh crap, we're not really playing yet. So it was so like, of course I had to put John in that league. But like, even still, there are certain kinds of people that sign up to be in Trade Addicts leagues. It really, encapsulates the value on players, even though it is different from league to league because every league is its own market. So I love scrolling through the trade finder to see what trades go down in, just rando leagues on MFL, because that's what the trade finder is. By the way, if people listening or watching don't know, on dynastyleaguefootball.com, they have a tool called the trade finder, and it pulls every single trade that happens on myfantasyleague.com. It gives you the league details, the amount of starters, the points per QB, like throw touchdown, tight end premium. Like there's all these different choices, the amount of teams, and you just type in a player, T. Higgins, and it will show you every trade that involved T. Higgins. So you can see what they're going for in the rest of the world. So there's tools out there. There's the trade finder, there's the trade analyzer on DLF, the trade calculator on Dynasty Trade Calculator, and then there's your friends. There's Twitter. Twitter polls aren't necessarily the most reliable answers.
They're very not reliable. No, I love the trade finder as well. It's, I write my weekly Dynasty decision article, and every single time I'm talking about a player, I plug in the results on the trade finder. And every single time I write the article, I'm gobsmacked to see some of the actual trades that have gone down. And every single time there's such diverging values on players that are going on in real leagues. And I think that's key, is that, as much as I sit here and say I have a value on every single player in fantasy, and that is a fixed value that I adjust, but that's me. Yeah. The community is very different. Every league, we talked about this last week's show about microeconomics and macroeconomics, and the Dynasty community is the macroeconomics, but every single league is that little micro bubble, as you said. The values are different, player values are different. I had one start of this offseason where I got Deshaun Watson in the 4th round. That was because 11 other teams said, I'm not drafting Deshaun Watson. Yep. And it was like, I could have pushed the button, and I could have probably drafted him in the 8th or 9th round, but I thought that was probably a little bit ridiculous. So I ended up taking him in the 4th round.
Take your profit, and that's like, get greedy.
Yeah. But don't expect that to happen in any other league that you're in, because it won't. And I think that that's key, is that, no, rough values, no rough where they're going in ADP, no, use the trade fund to see real trades, but every league is different, every valuation is different, and it's not going to be a case of, right, this player is worth this exact amount, so you have to pay this exact amount or we're not getting the deal done. It goes back to that open lines of communication, that negotiation, that kind of thing. So shifting it 180, Russ, we're looking at selling an asset here. Now I've got some bugbears. If you're looking to sell a player, how are you going about doing that?
Well, I already said how I feel about trade bait, and I am a big fan about it. But passive. That is, hey, everyone in this league, assuming you pay attention to the emails, that you even have it checked off that you get the notifications when someone updates their trade bait. I mean, it's the equivalent of going into the league chat and just saying player X is on the block. You know, it is, like I said, it's passive. It's hoping something comes to you, which isn't wrong. It's fine. Doesn't usually work, doesn't always work, but I do love using the trade bait because I like checking it. Like the other way around, it's just like, if I don't know what to do and I just feel like trading, I'll go look at trade baits and see who updated it at least somewhat recently. Just be like, I kind of like that guy. Let's see what we can do. And if anything, you see, again, what direction they want to go. Like if they only have their draft picks up there and like 2 rookies, it's like, all right, well, they want to compete and they're willing to sell their young things. All right, well, I don't necessarily want those, but they have this young guy and I have this guy. Let's see if we can put it together. So I love the trade bait. I think it is useful. I think it is obnoxious when people will click on every player on their team and every pick. That's not helpful to anybody, because, well, your team should always be up for trade for whatever, for different prices, but everyone should be open for negotiations. And B, that just doesn't help. That's not saying anything. I mean, that's just saying, I want to make a trade, but you're not helping anymore. Yeah. But if people just go on there and put the players on the trade bait that they are, again, not looking to move at a discount, not in a rush to move, not looking to do something stupid, but these are the players I'm cool with moving. These are the players I want to move to get my team in the direction I want it to go into. And again, on MFL, there's a comment section, which I usually just type something stupid, like, I hate this team, help me blow it up, which I've typed in many, many leagues. But like, yeah, we'll take a second for these guys looking to get younger, picks only. You know, there's so many things you can go to help, again, passively help people send you offers, which, who doesn't like getting that email that you have an offer? You know, it's great. Yeah. So help people do that. But also, if you want to, now you say actively, like proactively sell an asset, you do the exact opposite of what I said before with, I want to go get DeAndre Swift in every league. Click. That's where he is. Let's go. So if I have DeAndre Swift and I don't think he's going to be great in Philly, I think he's the same exact thing, and people are raising their value because of the landing spot, oh, I have him. The smart thing would be to find those competing teams, message them and be like, hey, are you interested in Swift? Or you be like me and just start clicking buttons and see how it goes. You know, you find the teams that have the good rosters. Either you remember who they are from last season, or you hit the roster button and you look to see who has 2 really good quarterbacks and a bunch of running backs on their team. Like if a team has like Derrick Henry and Josh Jacobs on their team, they're competing whether they want to be or not, because you can't rebuild with that right now. So you'd be like, all right, cool. Let me find a young wide receiver or a pick I like, and then make that offer. So it's the exact same thing, whether you're trying to trade for someone or trade away someone. It's just which direction you're clicking the buttons. You know, it's a very similar process, though. And whether you feel like talking at that moment or not just depends on which direction you go. Because sometimes, I don't feel like talking with people and I just want to click buttons. And if it gets accepted, that's fantastic. If not, and someone messages me, if I want to make the trade, I'll talk to them. You know, like that's what it comes down to. So it's a very similar process. It really is just finding the player you want to get rid of, finding the teams that fit that player, or, you know, if it's a young wide receiver, everybody wants young wide receivers. Like maybe you don't think Chris Olave should be the wide receiver like 5 that he is right now, and you want to go tier down to like Devonta Smith plus, which I've done before. So you go to every single team, see if they have that player you want to tier down to, see if they have a player or pick that bridges that gap. If they don't, move on. Or, hey, I feel like moving Olave. I'm kind of interested in this guy. What else? What do you think we could put together? Again, assuming you want something on their team. So there's a lot of ways to go about it, but it always comes down to doing the intelligent thing and actually looking at the other team and seeing if it's even worth your time.
Yeah, and I think I love the way that you're describing using the trade bait and the trade block, depending on if you're sleeper or MFL. I think that is the correct way to use it. Where it drives me absolutely insane is a few things that you've said. When a team puts their entire team on the block and it's just like, I'm open for deals. And it's like, basically what you're saying is you want to make some trades, but you're being lazy and you can't be asked to put together offers. So you're expecting to just say, make offers for these guys. And then you're waiting for people to come to you. And then 9 times out of 10, you ask them a price and they're like, just make me an offer or send me something. And it's like, so basically you're just being lazy. I think what drives me mad is I don't know, Kadarius Toney's just picked up yet another injury. So I don't know about you, I got about 15 notifications saying, Sky Moore, MVS, Rashee Rice have all just been put on the trade block. And it's like, everybody knows what you're doing. Like, just because a player's got injured doesn't mean I'm suddenly going to go and overpay for Sky Moore. And if somebody does go and overpay for Sky Moore, then I'm sorry, they're a moron, because if they wanted Sky Moore, they should have got Sky Moore just before one random piece of training camp news about it. So I think the trade block and the trade bait are fantastic when used correctly.
Yes.
But I've yet to see many leagues where they are used correctly. It's just a really poor way of basically trying to be lazy to make trades. Mm-hmm. What I love is something you said you do, is when you're putting players on a trade bait, put a little note saying what you're looking for. It doesn't have to be a specific price. Put a little note saying, I'm looking for, I'm selling my aging running backs. I'd quite like to get younger, or young wide receivers, future picks, something like that. For me, what I quite often do in my sleeper leagues particularly is you can go along and you can put a little nickname next to each player. So I will put a specific value. As I said, I've got trade values for every player. I'm quite happy to put my value and say, this is where I'm valuing this player. This player is worth 2 firsts. This player is worth a second. Yep. And then if somebody wants to come and, trade for that player, boom, that's an easy way to get deals done, because I'm valuing it second, but they might think the second's a great buy. So I think that's a really smart way to go about selling assets. I think that just blindly throwing players up on a trade block and just expecting the offers to come in can sometimes be really poor practice, because I think that all you do is you're basically saying, I'm being lazy and I can't be bothered to do the work for you. So can someone come and do the work and make some trades for me, and I'll just click accept, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I think that the proactive piece, I think it's so important to, if you are looking to sell a player and you're wanting to get peak value, you need to be proactive. You need to be in people's DMs. You need to be, working out trades that work for both sides, not just expecting it all to come to you.
I'm really sad this guy actually changed it. This one guy did his trade bait, and it was literally just every crappy asset on his team. I just pulled up my team, and this would have been his trade bait. Noah Brown, T.Y. Hilton, KJ Osborne, Shai Smith, Marcus Valdes-Scantling, Noah Fant.
Just, it's not helping anyone.
25 fourth. But why? Why did you waste my time making me open that email? What good did that do anyone?
Yeah. My thing is that this is the way I approach it, is that if I wouldn't pay a next year 3rd round pick for a player, if I value them less than that, they're not worth even talking about as trade bait and trade block, because what I'm basically saying is this player is borderline roster clogger, could be cut. Therefore, he's probably available. If someone wants him, they can come and buy him. But he's got no place on trade bait, because what's the point? Everybody knows that he's worthless. Why do I need to stick him on trade bait just to reinforce this guy's really rubbish? I'm looking to sell him, because no one's going to come buy him.
Yeah, if exactly, just to reiterate in a different wording, if that player is either going to just be a throw-in on a deal, or the dude you drop after you do an uneven trade, you do not put them on trade bait.
Yeah, exactly that. So the final thing I want to pick your brains on, Russ, future picks. I know you've said when you're competing, you've basically got no future picks. Are you happy pushing everything into the middle of the table and going all in, trading away 2-3 years future picks down the line, or are you just trying to maybe trade that 1 year and keep something in the arsenal for future years?
Well, there's All of the above. Really, what it comes down to, like, it's very team dependent. But if I have a team that, like, my Trade Addicts 2 team has had no picks for 3-4 years now, my team loves coming in second and third place, but I refuse to break this team down because I've gotten beat in the finals twice, both by Brian Haar and by combined less than 3 points.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I'm thinking about kicking Brian out. But yeah, like, and it's really funny because my fantasy league rolls over like the second week of February, and that's when you get that New Year's picks. So this past February is when we got the 2025 picks because we do 2 years out. That day, I get at least 3 or 4 offers for my first because they know. And it'll be for the Cooper Kupps, Derrick Henrys, Nick Chubbs, because they know that I'm going to win. So there's lots and lots of leagues like that where it is absolutely, yeah, I will forever just, as soon as I get them, I'm going to throw my picks away to rebuild. But I also have other teams where my Trade Addicts 3 team, where it was a nice build. It took me a little while. And I ended up doing a trade where I had X valuable player and I tiered down and got a first on top of it. And I'm sitting there with that first and I'm like, all right, you know what? This is going to be my ace up my sleeve. I'm going to go into the season with the team I have now, and either A, that's when I'll buy my running back, even though this team, I look at my Trade Addicts 3 team and I ask who built it because it has Christian McCaffrey, Josh Jacobs, Damian Pierce. I think I have Saquon also. Like, weird. Like, I hate running backs. Why do I have all of them? And
sounds like my DLF podcast team because that was an orphan I took over, and it's basically loaded at running back. It's like, I don't have any of these players on any other teams. Why is this built like this?
Yeah, so it comes down to a matter of patience, which team it is, and honestly, like, again, I act very emotionally where I said it almost like flippantly before, where in the comments of trade baits, I'll say, I hate this team, I want to blow it up. I've done that in the middle of the year for a competing team, only because I lost 2 games in a row I should have won because like 2 players didn't do as well as they should have. Don't play like I do. Don't play.
I was going to say what we're getting here is Rush is that sometimes you make irrational decisions emotionally.
Oh, 1000%. And again, it's only because I play in a lot of cheap leagues. Like if this were even if this was like a $50 league, I took even a little bit seriously. I would never do that. But it's a Trade Addicts league. It's my brand. I'm going to do something stupid. But yeah, it's a little back and forth. I love picks, and if I'm rebuilding, what I love to do is get as many as I can, and then let's say I go into a rookie draft with 6 first-round picks. My usual goal is to trade away half and draft half.
I love that.
I love that I have a group of people I listen to that I think are brilliant when it comes to rookie evaluation. I don't do it myself. I know better than to try and do it myself because I already know people that are good enough at it and they do it anyway. Why me do work when they want to do the work for me, you know? But even the best people are wrong every once in a while. So if I want to speed up my rebuild, why not take that 105 and see what young wide receiver that's going into their second year that did pretty well, just to make up a name that probably doesn't really fit with the price. But like, some people are a little low on Drake London because it's still Arthur Smith and it's Desmond Ridder, who's not great, and Kyle Pitts is coming back healthy. But I like what I saw from him at the end of the year when it was Ridder and they were vibing a little bit. Of course, Pitts will hopefully earn a bunch of targets because it's Kyle freaking Pitts and he better. I'm not ready for Kyle Pitts to be a bust. Like I can't handle that with all the Dynasty community went through when that man was a prospect. But like, yeah, I'm willing to give up what is the equivalent of JSN or Jordan Addison on a team or two, because I think I'd be pretty happy if they turned into the high-end wide receiver too. I think London showed he could be at the end of that season. So yeah, cool. I'll make that trade. And again, that is purely hypothetical. I didn't think that through, but so don't listen to those names and think that's what I'm talking about. But like, I love doing that kind of stuff. I'll plant my flags, get the players I want, but then I'll still trade some and move it away a little bit. Like, oh, I don't really want a rookie quarterback. I want to go get, whatever X quarterback like Tua. I love me Tua, and he is that insanely solid low 1, high 2. He's the next Kirk Cousins, more or less. So like, good. Let me go get Tua, still young, still good, and that will help be one of the building blocks of my team. So I love picks on a rebuilding team, but that doesn't mean I use them all, because more than anything else, they're trade chips. Because unless you are super, super solid in your process, which like I listen to Zach Reed, and the way Zach Reed rebuilds is he picks a class he likes. He knows there's lots of good players, and then gets as many first as he can, and then takes the players he wants. And Zach Reed's very, very good at this game. He wins. So I listen to everything he tells me to, but I'm still me, and I'm terrified of risk. So I'm not going to make all of the picks. I did not have the guts to draft Justin Jefferson as many times as he told me I should. And that's my fault. I just had to get me some Jalen Reagor. I don't know what to tell you. Yeah.
But I think for me, I think the important thing is, you mentioned there, is treating future draft picks not as a player that you're going to draft in X year. If you're talking about a 2025 first round pick now, doesn't have to be a 2025 rookie. That is a piece of trade collateral that is going to increase in value, but you can utilize, as you said, you went into that league, you've got this first round pick. If I get an injury, if I need a running back, that's when you use it. The way I view future picks is that I don't like trading more than 1 year out, just because whilst I play quite aggressively, I don't like the risk of having a horrendous team and having to wait 2-3 years to kind of get anything back. So I will quite happily trade a year out. Yes, there in some circumstances I will trade 2 years out. Sometimes I'll even trade 3 years out. But that needs to be, an absolutely loaded team that has got a weakness at tight end, and maybe if I go and spend a first round plus to go and get Travis Kelce, that's me securing a title. Yes, I will happily go and do that. But I think the thing that you mentioned it earlier is the projection of future picks. It drives me absolutely insane when I'm sitting here, we're in the off season, and somebody's saying to me, would you trade an early 24 first and an early 25 first for X player? And I'm like, first of all, how the hell can you tell it's an early 24 first? But even more so, how can you tell 25 first? There is so much time between now and the start of the season. Yes, there could be teams that you're looking at and going, they've not got any good players. But shock, fantasy is not linear. Like, player value spikes, players can pop out of nowhere. They could trade 3 future first round picks and suddenly have a loaded roster. You can never project picks. I have a very clear and defined process of, I will not project any future pick until week 4 of the season. Mm-hmm. And at week 4, I will then break it into 3 tiers. I will go early, mid, late. And that is it. Before week 4, I don't think you can do any sort of projection. And then even then, I'm not saying, oh, this is the 101. This is the 112. It's in those 3 buckets. And I won't change those 3 buckets until we get to playoff time. And then you actually know, right, this is definitely a top 6 pick and things like that. Because, it drives me mad when people are like, oh, but is it an early first? Is it a mid first? It's like, you can't tell. The season will change. Everything will change. So don't try and project future picks.
Yeah, because I told the story earlier where some guy traded his first away for what should have been worth more than just 124 first. And the guy's like, well, it's going to be early. I'm like, it won't be when I'm done with it. There's plenty of ways around that. And also, we told the story before how I earned Saquon Barkley. I earned the 101 and then won the next 2-3 years. Like, so much time, so much can happen. The insane rarity of saying, I know this will be early and I know this will be late, are 2 things where you never want in your league anyway. A team that is so bad that has no picks and no players, and you have their first. I have this in one league where this team is atrocious, I don't know how they got where they did. I don't remember how I got there first with them being as bad as they did. But I have that pick, and I see what their team is, and that they don't have the assets to turn it around that quickly. I still won't say the 101, but like in 24, I'm like, I mean, that's gonna there that has a chance at being Caleb or Marvin Jr. I'm not moving that away quickly. Like I'm holding that unless you want to King's ransom it for me.
Yeah.
And that, yeah. Or you have that team that won the championship with like Patrick Mahomes, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Mark Andrews. They have all these players in their lower to mid 20s and they're winning championships. Like, well, crap, they're going to be good for a while. Okay, I'll call that late, but hopefully that doesn't happen very often because both of those are not great for your league, but you're right. 99% of the time, 24 first, yeah, that's mid. 25 first, whatever, man. Like the hard part about 2 years out is what do you value 25 first at, especially not knowing where it's going to land and how you have to wait a year for it to gain that real draft pick value. You have to be able to find that sweet spot of still having that value of a first, but time is money. So it shouldn't be worth the same as a 24. It needs to be worth different to me. So like, that's why I couldn't comprehend going 3 years out. I would have no idea how to value a 3-year out pick. It's just like, that's forever. like I love like the Kyle Shanahan thing of like, I don't know who's going to be alive on Thursday. How am I going to, say who's going to start? Like what, like, okay, the trade addicts leagues are going to be going in 3 years. If I'm still living, even if I'm not, I hope they're still going. Like if I'm still alive, I'm still going to be pushing for them to exist. But like a rando league you found on Twitter, I wouldn't trade for a 26 first. Like there's nothing saying that league's going to be around for that long. And it's just, yeah, but like you're absolutely right. Future picks, you need to treat them as mid. And I loved that you even said week 4, because I get the answer, the question every single year. When do you decide whether you're going to compete or you're going to toss in the towel? And I say by the latest of week 4, because I think week 4 is when a lot of people start to do it, which means you want to do it week 3 to get ahead of the curve. But week 4 is that answer. Week 4 is that, all right, I have a couple of wins or losses under my belt, and I can see whether they are real or if there was, I just played this team that happened to score 600 points in 1 week. Like you have a gauge of what your team is and the actual gauge of what your team is, not just wins or losses, because in your average fantasy football league, wins and losses doesn't mean as much as you want it to, because it's all super random. That's why we started letting playoff seeds be picked by most points or all win percentage and all like these different things, and not just riding on record, because who you play each week on a team where we can't physically play defense to try and stop other teams from scoring, which would be an interesting idea, actually. Like I'm sure that's like the Superpowers League that John Bosch runs that I have no interest because it's so complicated. But like you can't affect how many points the other team scores. So that has no riding on how good your team is.
I had a beauty in my home redraft league, so it's 14 team. And one of my mates went 2-12 in the regular season. He scored the most points.
Yep.
Someone worked it out, and if he'd have had the schedule of any other team in the league, he would have made the playoffs. But
that's
went
how you
2
find
and 12.
People who quit leagues.
Yeah. Oh, he was absolutely fuming. Like it was horrendous. It was just, yeah, as you can imagine, it was, every week was like second or third highest scoring points. Every week was playing the team that scored the most points. And it was, by the end of the season, it was absolutely brilliant to watch, because it was, just him just being infuriated.
What else could you do? Like you literally can't do anything about it. But on the plus side, if that's Dynasty and they have their first round pick, they have a fantastic team and are about to get a really good draft pick.
Yeah, unfortunately, it was redraft, so he literally there was no silver lining. Just
no silver. Yeah. Oh yeah. You cry and you most likely quit. Yeah, that's about right.
Yeah, exactly that. Well, that brings us to the end, Russ. But thank you ever so much for jumping on. It's been an absolute delight. I've had a great time. I hope people watching and viewing have. Remind everybody watching, where can they find you? Where can they find your work?
Well, on Twitter at Dynasty Outhouse. I also mostly run the @FantasyCares.org Twitter, though. John Bosch and Bob Gilchrist jump on there also because I'm lazy and I forget to do things sometimes. We also do, what do I do? Dynasty Game Night on the DLF Family podcast. I have to edit one of those we're about to put out. We just started up doing Dynasty Wall Street on the Dynasty Trade Calculator podcast stream. Again, way to take off the past few months for all of the Fantasy Cares and SFB stuff, but we released one last week, so we're going to try and keep it weekly going forward. I'm going to start writing my trading post article for DLF again, speaking of how awesome the Trade Finder is. I think that's it. Donate to Fantasy Cares. That's really what it is right now. In case you don't know, fantasycares.org. We actually have the .org website. We're registered 501c3, which, for you American folks means we're an official charity, all that stuff. So we mostly give to, at the end of the year, we do Toys for Tots shopping for kids to get presents for the holidays that other families can't afford. So if you haven't seen, if you go to, it's probably still up on scottfishbowl.com and fantasycares.org, pictures of us shopping and like lines of carts just overflowing with toys. It's like this beaming of like it's not a feeling you can describe. And how, like, I have a picture with me because Toys for Tots is through the Marines, and there's these group of people in like full dress outfits, like of their Marines outfits, and like me and like two of my friends wearing our SFB shirts, just like arms out, all of us, and there's just engulfed in carts of toys, and it makes me so happy. And then we'll donate to other charities along the way as well, because we want to help as many people as we can. So, whether you could donate $1, $10, $1 million, we'll take whatever you can give. And when it comes down to it, donate in general. Take a buy-in from your league. Whoever wins the league, let them choose what charity to donate to. Just any sort of charitable aspect. My leagues are still, you get to choose. By now, people know me, so like, all right, well, just give it to the Fantasy Cares. It makes your life easier. I'm like, it does make my life easier. Thank you. So yeah, let someone choose, because that's also another great reason to play for if it's not high stakes. Especially last year where we had that really weird ending to the season, the fantasy season. So many people are like, all right, let's just split the pot, and whoever figures out who's the winner gets to choose the charity. Like, a lot of people ended up playing for that, and like, that's where it got a little snippy. Like, people wanted to give the money to their charity. And I'm like, that fighting all allow, fighting over a fantasy game, I don't like. Being angry that you don't get to give the money to your charity, I usually end up toning a little bit anyway. But like that's the good stuff. That's what I love to see in fantasy football. So fantasycares.org/donate if you want to give to us. But in general, just give to anybody.
No, absolutely. I fully endorse everything you said. Since I've come into this community, it's the most amazing place. It's the most amazing group and collection of people, and a large part of that is down to the amazing work that you guys do, and the precedent that you guys have set to the rest of us. There's a lot of leagues I play in that follow that precedent of 25% of the pot goes to charity, and that's because of all the stuff you guys do and the work you have done laying the groundwork for the rest of us. So yeah, absolutely, go to Fantasy Cares, donate. It is incredible, the pictures and the stories and stuff that comes out of that. So fully endorse it. And yeah, thank you ever so much for coming on. We'll be back. We're diving into redraft season now. Tom and I, we've got plenty of shows. We're hoping to do one a day for the next couple of weeks. So keep checking back, hit that subscribe button, and you won't miss anything.